Um, and before Andy starts, I just wanted to find my notes. Just bringing you up to date, really, on the Civic Society. We seem to be getting more and more involved with the City Council on all sorts of projects, both of the Civic Society and the City Council. For example, if you saw on the web, we started a campaign suggesting that the railway line between Morecambe and Lancaster should be electrified. The original line, which is probably stealing something from Andy tonight, which ran along the river side, was electrified, one of the first in the country, if not the first. It was third rail. But we've asked for overhead lines so that, for example, a train coming in from Manchester going to Glasgow could, when Eden is open, call in at Morecambe, drop passengers off for the Eden project, and then proceed back up the main line on its way to Glasgow, probably adding 20 minutes or so to the journey time. We had a meeting, we were invited to a meeting by the City Council to discuss this, and the suggestion that they've had put to them by county is they found some redundant London Underground trains which are coming out of service. They're being altered, the interiors. They're being fitted with batteries and running on diesel, with diesel engines. And they've been suggested to go on the Lancaster-Manchester line. There are some running as a trial between Wrexham and Bidston near Birkenhead. And in fact, this morning I found some photographs of them, and I've sent them to David, so I've no doubt they'll be appearing somewhere on social media at some point. So they're looking for a cheap option, and so we're not over enamored or impressed at the moment. The bell rig issue, it's gone quiet at the moment. We understand the agreement has now been signed by the City Council to put in the amount of money needed to cover the balance from the grant coming from central government for the new roads, utilities, schools, etc. for that South Lancaster development. We are opposed to the size of the development, and at the moment we're watching very closely and doing our best to keep the council honest. You'll all know from experience that that could be one hell of a job.
Yes.
We are involved in a program at the moment, which we were approached by the museum service about a lack of plaques commemorating the contribution that women have made to the life of the citizens of Lancaster and district. We ran a campaign, came up with 48 names. Unfortunately, 8 of them were still alive, or fortunately, depending on your point of view. So they had to be taken off the list. But we're now working our way through them, looking at what their contribution was, looking at suitable sites for plaques.
Speakers ought to be speaking to blank audiences.
And of course, looking for funding. And the first plaque ordered is the one for Sister Cox at the hospice. So we're waiting for a time when that comes back and is installed. There's a plaque been agreed to go in the Priory for the lady who helped found the RSPB, Emily Williamson. There's a plaque agreed for the last lady lighthouse keepers at the Plover Scar and the Cockersan lighthouses. So we're getting there. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It will take some time to do it. And then I'm waiting for the complaints from the men saying that they're now outnumbered. But we'll sort that one out when it comes. I have been approached by the City Council, and we've got some funding for heritage work in the area around the old corn mill that's to the east of where the bus station is now, and the mill race, that area. They've contributed to the extension at the theatre, and they're looking for suggestions, and they want to get involved on the plaque side. And in fact, I got an email just before I logged on from them with some suggestions. So I'll keep you posted on that. So that's bringing you up to date with some of the things that we're up to at the moment. So it's now time to introduce our guest speaker tonight. Andrew is known, hopefully, to all of you. His work with the Lancaster District Heritage Group. He's one of the administrators of the Lancaster Past and Present Facebook page, which must be one of the most popular. Creator, yeah. He has a vast knowledge and curiosity about this area, and tonight he's going to talk to you about the story of the railways around Lancaster and Morecambe. So over to you, Andy, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I shall just get to... You all see that? Okay. Is that showing okay, David?
Yeah, that's okay. That's there.
Okay. Okie dokie. Okay, just get rid of my taskbar. Okay, yeah, the talk I want to talk to you about tonight is looking at the railways around Lancaster and Morecambe, provisionally the stations, the ones that were around, and many are no longer around. When I started putting this talk together, I was going to incorporate a lot of the outlying villages like Golgate and Halton and things like that. But I found so much information literally just in Lancaster and Morecambe, and obviously Heysham, that that will be there for another talk. So yeah, tune in for that one as well. So firstly, I want to look at Lancaster's first railway station. As many of you may be aware, that was situated. Clicker's not working. 1 second. That was situated at Greaves, or at the back of South Road, as many of you will know it. Before it was severely overgrown, it looked like that. You can't really see much of the building currently because of the growth that's there. But obviously there's no photographs, unfortunately, of the original station, but the main picture there is an artist's impression. It was open from 1840 to 1849, by which time it had been superseded by Lancaster Castle railway station. Some books refer to the station as Lancaster Greaves or Lancaster Penny Street to distinguish it from the later stations in the city. Although whilst open, obviously there was no other train stations, so it was known simply as Lancaster, as there was no other station of that name at the time. Here's an overhead map showing the location. Now, if you look there, you can see Ashton Road, the old Lancaster Infirmary, South Road coming down here. So the platforms came along the top here, and there was a goods yard to the side. Obviously, a lot of us will pass this every day without even giving it a second thought, but that is the actual side of the railway station itself. There are still some aspects of the station still there. The arches you can see in the middle bottom one would have been the entrances to get into the actual station from the platforms itself. And the bottom right is another part of the railway buildings itself. There are still aspects of the old station in there. My friend David Chandler did a video of it on YouTube, and there is the old station bell still in place. There's a cellar which was used to store goods ready for transit. But obviously a lot of the area now has been redeveloped. Now here's an interesting photograph from 1885, taken from Ripley Tower. So you got to see the Royal Albert in the background there. But what it does show to the top left, where the arrow is at the moment, those were actual railway sheds. They disappeared a long time ago, and obviously you can, at 1885, we don't have any semblance of greaves as such. So the actual railway came. This is obviously the main line, which is still there, and the bridge on Ashton Road. But the line actually came across there, past the railway sheds and straight down to the station. Lancaster and Carlisle Railway, the LCR, opened its own Lancaster Castle railway station on the 22nd of September 1846. Its line joined the Lancaster and Preston Junction Railway a short distance south of Lancaster. On the 1st of August 1849, the Lancaster and Carlisle Railway leased the Lancaster to Preston Junction Railway line, on which date Lancaster Station was closed to passengers. They were also running separate timetables, which did lead to an accident on Bay Horse in the mid-1840s, which I will deal with on the talk of the outlying stations. Remnants of the original platform can still be seen on this site, which is now used as the Royal Lancaster Infirmary car park. And again, it's something you might walk past every day without realising, but the platform is still very much in evidence. And there we see at the sort of middle section of the car park. As you walk past that, if you walk past that in any time soon, that is the actual remnants of the platform itself. Although close to passengers in 1849, the tracks were left down, and the area continued to be used as a siding for goods wagons well into the 1960s. Also during the 1960s, it hosted many heritage steam tours. And that is where the car park is now. That was taken early 1960s. And here we have one of the heritage rail. I think that's Clan Mackintosh Railway railway engine. So you got the back of Greaves here, and down towards the left-hand side there, you can see what area will be now the car park, dissected by the road down to Ashton Road from the roundabout. And again, there's another train on the line, again at the back of Greaves, and another similar shot there. So it was quite a popular area because obviously people could actually join it there and then get onto the main line while the heritage tours was still in operation before the final death knell of steam. Very little now remains of the as the area has been developed for housing. The track bed is seen here in 1975, along with the demolition of the second bridge on Bridge Road at Greaves. So if you go now and have a look, it's totally it's gone back to nature. You can't really see any evidence of the bed. So that's the top right one is leading from Bridge Road, going back onto the main line. I remember it like that, going to Ripley School as a wean. And that was shortly before. This is the other side of Bridge Road. So Bridge Road is just coming down at the bottom, on the bottom right one. All this now has obviously been redeveloped and is now flat. And that was the removal by Jacksons of Carnforth of the second bridge, which took the line, which I think went in about 1977-78. So Lancaster Station itself, moving on. Originally known as Lancaster Castle Station in order to distinguish it from the first Lancaster Station that we've just talked about. Lancaster Station was officially opened on the 21st of September 1846. The first public service ran into the station on the 17th of December in the same year. The station was built as a southern terminus for the Lancaster to Carlisle Railway. After the initial planned route for the line, which would have followed the River Lune and Lune Valley through Sedbergh, was changed in favour of a cheaper route west of the city. And that is the original route which the northwest main line would have taken. Pretty much following the Little Northwestern Midlands Railway through Holton and stuff like that. But going through Sedbergh, the main issue with that was the engines at the time. The engineers believed that with the gradients that would be involved in that route, that they didn't have an engine strong enough to actually pull it. And this route was more expensive. So they plumbed for what is the current route, which we're all used to today, going up through Carnforth and Penrith. When it opened, the castle looked very different to what it does today. This is a sketch made at the opening in 1846. The station was remodelled in 1900, between 1900 and 1906, where additional lines and platforms were added and a further station buildings constructed. The new buildings are styled in the mock Elizabethan with the intention of mirroring the battlements of the nearby Lancaster castles. Platforms 5 and 6 on the east side of the station were electrified in 1908 and to serve the now closed Midland Railway route to Morecambe and Heysham. This line closed in January 1966 and the overhead line equipment was removed. So here we see Lancaster Station shortly after remodelling and still pretty much identifiable as how it looks today. That was after they added the battlements as such to make it look in keeping with the area. Over the years, obviously it's had heavy use. Here's a selection of shots back in the day. Top left is one of the electric coaches which would be heading to Green Ayre and onto Morecambe. But it's always been a busy station. Bottom right one is quite interesting. The amount of sidings that used to be just south of the station there, which again no longer exist. The track layout of the station area was rationalised in 1973 when control of the signalling was transferred to the new Preston Power signal box. This included the removal of track from platform 6, although this platform has seen no regular use for some time prior to this. And quite interestingly, currently there is planning permission to make a pub, a bar in the old buildings which are now disused. And I think that's quite ahead. I think it's probably going to go ahead. Not probably the best place to stagger out of when you've got trains coming past you, but hey ho. The West Coast Main Line through Lancaster was electrified in 1974, and regular electric passenger services recommenced at the station on the 7th of May 1974. So going through the 80s, again, still a busy station. Some of you might remember the cooling tower that was back down there on the quay. Top right is, there was a lot of testing of the APT, the Advanced Passenger Train through Lancaster at the time, before it failed miserably. Yeah, so it, like I say, it's always been a busy station, as it is today. You know, it's the hub of Lancaster, and obviously in debate at the moment with the not only with the extending the electrified, you know, keeping Lancaster a main stop, but also, you know, the electrification from Lancaster to Morecambe as well. Moving on to Carlisle Bridge. The Carlisle Bridge, or Lune Bridge, carries Lancaster and Carlisle Railway over River Lune on 3 main spans of 120 feet. The railway was designed by Joseph Flock, assisted by John Edward Errington, and forms a central section of the West Coast Main Line between London and Glasgow, almost all of which Flock engineered. This section was built by a consortium of Thomas Brassey, William Mackenzie, and John Stevenson in 1884 to 1846, opening in 1847. As with many early railway bridges and viaducts, the bridge was built with its main river spans in a laminated timber for speed of construction. This enabled the line to open sooner and earn income, part of which was set aside to replace the spans later. As intended, they were replaced by wrought iron girders in 1866. But to be quite honest, I think it looks a lot more stunning in timber. That was the original Carlisle Bridge. Top left is an engraving, which is the London National Geographic in London. But the actual, it was a very ornate, very stylish bridge, which unfortunately lasted less than 10 years, 20 years, sorry. From 1866 to 1962, it looked like this, very boxy, but obviously that it was planned that way, obviously to re-put in the money once the railway is opened. The bottom left picture is a photograph of Morecambe Road on in 1927, 1928. The road bridge was actually widened in 1928, which is probably a damn good job, because with the amount of traffic we have these days, it will be quite interesting getting them through that little opening. And on the bottom right there, you can see the prefabs that were on the side of Rylands many years ago. So the river spans were rebuilt in composite steel and concrete construction between 1962 and 1963, using 4 main longitudinal steel girders and the cantilevered steel girders carrying the concrete deck slab. During the time the bridge was out of action, the mainline trains had to divert from Castle Station to Green Ayre, then on to Morecambe before rejoining the main line at Sline. So I'm sure that was a barrel of laughs for all concerned, but it was a necessity. They had to redo the bridge. The line went then electrified. The line was then electrified, the whole length being declared complete by Her Majesty the Queen when she unveiled a plaque to that effect on Preston Station on the 7th of May 1974. The bridge carries twin tracks railways and two large service pipes. There is a public footway on the eastern side of the deck. These are some photographs of the construction work back in the 1963. So like I say, it wasn't a simple job. They had to literally take what was off there and completely refit it. But as we see today, it's still very much doing the job it was intended to do, both for old heritage steam trains and the modern London to Glasgow line. Moving on to Green Ayre. The station was opened by the Morecambe Harbour and Railway Company on the 12th of June 1848. The station building was designed by Edmund Sharp. Originally called Lancaster, it was soon named Lancaster Green Ayre, although timetables incorrectly listed it, the name as Lancaster Green Area, all the way up until 1870. The line originally ran from Lancaster to Morecambe Harbour. Morecambe and Heysham, Heysham are soon amalgamated with the Little North Western Railway, which continued the line eastward from the 17th of November 1849, reaching Skerton in 1850. A connecting curve between Green Ayre and Castle Station was opened on the 18th of December 1849. And my God, wouldn't that be a lovely line to still have these days, going through the Lune Valley. So here's some images of Green Ayre itself. A lot of people obviously don't realise, especially younger ones, don't realise that where they go to skateboard used to be such a hive of activity. The fact there was a full-size working station within a small area still quite amazes people. The bottom two images are how it looked from Parliament Street. The station was on the southern bank of the River Lune, adjacent to Skerton Bridge and immediately north of the city centre. Immediately west of the station was the junction between the connecting curve and Castle and Green Ayre Station was engine sheds. The engine shed were sited literally where Sainsbury's is now. There was the engine sheds and the turntable there. And the main line which crossed the river via Greyhound Bridge and continued along the north bank of the river, passing under Lancaster and Carlisle's railway bridge that spans over the river. The Lancaster Morecambe line was electrified in 1908. This was the first high voltage overhead electrification in the United Kingdom. It was a pioneer for such systems and was intended as a test bed for further mainline electrification by the Midland Railway. There was a section of line there between where Scalehall Station was to Carlisle Bridge, which was known as Golden Mile. Basically, they tried various different types of overhead cabling systems and cantinas to try and simulate, like they put some of the cantinas together to simulate how it would be going under a tunnel. They tried different styles and stuff like that, and all that was within a mile on this actual line. So it was very, very important little bit of line, which unfortunately that kind of information seems to have sort of got lost in the years going by. Again, another very busy station. There's some shots of the actual station in action. Bottom right there, you can see Skerton Bridge in the background. Obviously, there's no remnants of the actual station, save for a little bit of wall nils near Skerton Bridge, and obviously the crane that's there, which actually it's a goods crane, which actually came from Hornby, to use to signify that it was actually a railway station. There's quite a good view from Skerton Bridge. Just shows you the vastness of the station itself and how close to the actual riverside it came. The line between Wennington and Morecambe via Green Ayre fell victim to dear old Mr. Beeching, or Dr. Beeching, with the Beeching axe. It was close to passengers on the 2nd of January 1966, although line through the station continued to be used for freight until the 6th of March 1976. That was primarily to take coal down to the Caton Row power station. I'm sure some of you might remember the barriers that used to be on Greyhound Bridge, which would drop down while a train trundled across it. Hard to imagine now. But because once Greyhound Bridge was open to roads and the trains were going over it, they had to build the track up from ballast, because obviously the road deck is considerably higher than the original rail deck would have been. So there are some old photographs on both sides of Greyhound Bridge showing the track was built up with a lot of ballast. But obviously when the power station ceased to exist, there was no longer any need for that line. The platform, the last remaining part of the station, was demolished in 1976. These are from the early 70s, and again, it's with various states of disrepair. Such a shame, because it was a very, very nice building, and obviously these days would probably have been repurposed for something good, but back in the day it was usually, you know, get the ball and chain out and let's smash it to bits. Here's a shot from 1977, the main shot, showing the actual complete clearance of the area. You can just see, if you follow the pointer there, that little bit of wall is still visible as the crane is round about, you know, obviously where the the bottom picture is there, but you can actually see the pathways being laid out to what is now obviously the Green Ayre Park. So moving on to Greyhound Bridge, the first bridge on the site was constructed out of laminated timber in 1848 to carry the Morecambe Harbour and Railway Company's new railway linking the adjoining Lancaster Green Ayre Railway station to Morecambe Harbour. This was replaced by a wrought iron viaduct in 1862 to 1864, and again by the third and current bridge in 1911. And again, that's another example of them getting the bridge built quickly to enable it to be used, initially building it out of laminated timber, but always with a plan to change it to a metal bridge at a later date, which is pointed out in this map that I discovered, 1845 bridge plans. So the initial one, the timber bridge, can be seen there where it says Greyhound Bridge. But even back in 1845, the plans were there to build its replacement metal bridge. The replacement, or second Greyhound Bridge, if you will, had a lot sharper curve than the first one. The first one and the current one actually span the same sort of direct area, whereas, like I say, the second metal bridge was a lot sharper. And if you do look from Green Ayre now, you can see, looking across the Lune, you can still see how wide the buttress was to accommodate both tracks in development. So between 1848 and 1862, this is what our first Greyhound Bridge looked like. Again, made of laminated timber. Between 1864 and 1911. That was then the first metal construction, but sharper angled bridge. A little twist to the story there. When this was deconstructed in 1911, it was repurposed, and a lot of the parts were used to make the bridge, the Penny Bridge at Halton, which opened in 1913, the remade bridge. So even back in the days, they were still attempting recycling, which was a good job. Here we see some images taken around 1911 showing the construction of the new bridge and the removal of the old. Top left kind of answers a question as to, well, a few people have asked me as to what are them bits sticking out of the water or the mud by Greyhound Bridge. We believe that they are the remnants of the, should we say, scaffold in the old framework when they were building the second bridge, the third bridge, sorry. So you can see the second bridge in the background there, third bridge under construction, and these regimental little sort of wooden piers that were used in the construction. The top right one is quite an interesting one because it's actually got both bridges virtually in situ. You've got the newest one from the middle of the picture, but if you look to the far right, there's also the second bridge still in its place. Bottom right, bottom left is the deconstruction of the second bridge, and the bottom right would be a nightmare for anybody involved with health and safety these days. I'll leave it at that. I'll get it. It's the finishing off the construction. Yeah, that gives you a good oversight view of Green Ayre and Greyhound Bridge there, taken pre 1938, probably a little bit earlier than that. It's probably either late 20s or early 30s. As if you look along Cable Street, we do not have a bus station. That didn't appear till 1938. So all that land is still yet to be cleared. And again, over the years, a heavily worked bridge. The bottom one there is, I think, returning from the Trimple Works, the ICI. So not only did it take a lot of passengers, it also was used heavily for freight as well. All things come to an end. The Greyhound Bridge was converted for use to the A589 road from 1972. Interesting shot there. That taken early 1972 is showing the initial stages of the concrete deck being fitted to Greyhound Bridge, and that is a couple of months before it opened in September. I think it was September 72. With the final touches just being made to that. Swooping down to Morecambe Harbour Station, just a quick mention of this one. Morecambe Harbour Railway Station was on the Little North Western Railway's Morecambe Harbour and Railway in Morecambe, Lancashire, England. It opened in 1848 and closed in 1904. The line remained open to serve the harbour until an unknown date. Today the station building still exists as a cafe. Very interesting photograph I found there. It was even before Wood's shipyard was, Breaker's shipyard was there. So there we see this, what is now the stone jetty and the old station building, but there was also good sheds as well there, and the line used to come across the road, the promenade, from the actual main Morecambe line. Another quick mention is Northumberland Street. It opened in 12th of June 1848. The station was expanded and the buildings were rebuilt in 1872. It closed in March 1907 following the opening of the Morecambe Promenade, built by reusing the walling stones and dresses transferred by the Midland Railway from Northumberland Street. So a great chunk of Promenade Station is the old Northumberland Street station. Ironically, the current Morecambe Station, modern station, occupies virtually the same site as original Northumberland Street station. And that's how it originally looked, very high arched station building. Again, we move on to the main Morecambe Station, Promenade Station. Built by the Midland Railway Company as the terminus for the former Little North Western Railway, Morecambe Promenade Station first opened to passengers in 1907. It served as a replacement for the inadequate Northumberland Street Station. Again, we just mentioned it's in the same place of the new two-platform one. The Midland Railway electrified the recently opened branch line from Heysham Harbour to Morecambe Promenade on the 18th of April 1908, and the main line to Lancaster soon afterwards. The electrical power for the overhead lines was supplied from the company's power station at Heysham Harbour. Promenade Station survived the beaching acts, but by the late 1980s, tourism in Morecambe was rapidly declining. A final commemorative rail tour visited the station on the evening before the official closure on the 7th of February 1994. Here we have it not long after its opening. Again, very identifiable as the building that it still is. And again, the scale of it is shown quite accurately by this. Not only did you have all the platforms, there was sidings, there was good yards. So it was quite an imposing area. See the Midland Hotel in the bottom left there. Here's a photograph of the station actually on its opening day. Obviously a scene of great excitement. Yeah, quite busy. First train, new station. And again, over the years, used both with electrification, electric trains from Lancaster, a lot of holiday makers, especially in the 50s and that. As we all know, the nickname Morecambe nicknamed Bradford by the Sea. So it was a great arterial link for holidaymakers to come to Morecambe. Unfortunately, as mentioned, Morecambe as a holiday destination tended to wane greatly. Towards the end, it looked quite a sorry state, overgrown, weeds. The building was dilapidated, and unfortunately, it's bit the ubiquitous bullet. The station building does thankfully remain intact. It became an entertainment venue in 1997 when the pub restaurant, the platform, was opened, as well as a platform arts centre and the Morecambe Tourist Information Centre, which has been based there since 1992. Platform area became the car park and site of Morecambe's Festival Market. And obviously the building still there, loud and proud, operating as the platform. Just before we move on to the next station, I just want to mention the fact that from this map in 1913, there was two railway operators running the trains and stations in the area, which was always going to cause a little bit of an issue. The London North Western Railways in red, which obviously owns the main line, London to Glasgow, and the spur that we still have down to Morecambe. But Midland in green, obviously on green Ayre, the what is now the cycle track from Lancaster to Morecambe. And it was Midland that owned Promenade Station. It was London North Western that owned the next station we're going to talk about, Euston Road. So here comes a slight conflict. Euston Road opened on the 9th of May 1886. The new station, originally known as Morecambe or Morecambe and LNWR, was initially built with one long platform, a glass canopy, and a substantial two-storey main building built of yellow brick. And a goods yard was also provided alongside. Euston Road remained much quieter than the Midland neighbour, and it was obvious that one would be closed when traffic at the resort began to decline from the mid-50s onwards. From the 15th of September 1958, regular service trains were all diverted to the Promenade, and the station was thereafter only used for in the summer for overspill traffic. The station and tracks continued to be used for stabling empty coaching stock until the summer of 1965, and later that year the track was lifted. The goods yard continued in operation until the 9th of October 1972. Disused station and buildings and platform were eventually demolished in the mid-1970s and the site redeveloped, but its goods yards and sheds survived as a builder's merchant's yard, which is at the back of the residential housing that's there. And again, a good overview shot of how the station itself looked. So it was quite a substantial station. So we have Euston Road running across the centre here. Morecambe bus station, obviously ideally placed right next to the train station. Both obviously of which have gone now. That's a shot from 1949. And again, in its heyday, very busy station, very ornate looking station, but as with a couple of stations we've seen, time waits for no man. Tracks were lifted, it remained derelict and vandalised until being removed completely. Moving down to Heysham Harbour. The station was opened as Heysham Harbour, hence its current station code, by the Midland Railway on the 11th of July 1904. It was relocated to an adjacent site on the 4th of May 1970 and served as boat trains to Belfast until the closure of the ferry route in April 1975. The train services were withdrawn on 6th of October of that year, 1975, but reinstated on the 11th of May in 1987, with the station being renamed Heysham Sea Terminal to provide rail connection to the daily sailing to Douglas run by the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company. The station acquired its present name on the 28th of September 1992. As constructed, the station had 3 platforms, 2 signal boxes, an extensive goods depot for associated sidings to service the port complex, which dates from 1904. It handled a wide range of freight for export, including livestock, parcels, and latterly fuel oil from the distribution terminal operated by Shell. None of these types of traffic have been handled here since the early 1980s. All freight through the port, mainly containers, is worked by road. Yeah, that's a artist drawing of the port layout and the lines coming into the port with the station. Very early photograph of the station itself. And it was very ornate. So there's some more images from actually inside the original Heysham station itself before it was moved. And again, starting to look a little tired. And that's what we have today. Sparse is probably a polite way of putting it, but for the amount of trains which tootle down there, it's probably does the job. Again, moving on to a couple of smaller stations. Skerton Station. This is Lancaster's shortest lived station. It served the suburb of Scalehall in Lancaster. The station was located near the Morecambe Road Scalehall Lane junction. The station opened in 1957 and closed to passengers in 1966, with the line between Lancaster Green Ayre and Morecambe Promenade closing. I've talked to a few people of an age who remember they used to do something at Scalehall called the Pram Special, where a mother, child and pram could get a return to Lancaster for a penny. And apparently that was a very popular ticket. But it was, it was a modern station, which unfortunately fell victim to Dr. Beeching. On a slight little twist at the end, the station building was re-erected as the new clubhouse for Morecambe Cricket Club. That has been since redeveloped again, but there are still remnants of the old station still at Morecambe Cricket Club. That's an image of Scalehall in its heyday. Again, unless you start scrubbing around in the bushes these days, you can see very little. You can still see little bits of the platform and some brickwork, but other than that, it's nature's taken its course. Again, very popular station. Obviously, once the tracks had gone, no more use, it descended into a vandalised shell, but luckily the structure of it was actually used for the cricket club. Look at Bear Lane. The station was opened as Pontley Sands on the 8th of August 1864 by the London and North Western Railway, being named Bear Lane on the 31st of October 1864. Quick name change. Level crossing with public highway known as Bear Lane exists immediately to the west of the station, which until recently was controlled by the adjacent Bear Lane signal box, a fringe cabin to the Preston PSB area. The box was closed on the 8th of December 2012, the signal and equipment renewed by Network Rail, and control crossing switched to the CCTV and transferred to the Preston Power Box. There was quite an active group that were trying to actually save the box, but it ultimately fell on deaf ears and it was demolished. The old station building on the platform is now private dwelling. So again, in its heyday, again, and very ornate little station. So that's a whistle-stop tour of the stations itself, but what I want to show you now is what's there, what was there then and what's there now. Obviously some last stations like Castle Station are still active and very recognisable, both old and new, but others have disappeared forever. This is part of a project I've been doing since 2013 of specific areas around the Lancaster area, finding old photographs of the area and getting to virtually the same spot and taking a current photograph in comparison. For the Lancaster area, I'm up to about 350, but these are some of the railway related ones which tie in quite nicely with the talk. So firstly, we have Green Ayre. The second one there is from Parliament Street. Also can be seen there was the Art Deco Pies building, which again, bit the bullet a long time ago. Parliament's, when the bridge was, Greyhound Bridge was used for a road, obviously the Parliament Street was widened considerably at the time. But that was the entrance there, just in front of where that bloke is. that was the actual entrance to the station. Then that's looking across from the park. That one's taken from the tower blocks, looking down onto Skerton Bridge and Green Ayre itself. And again, you can see the so there's some yobs going past my house, if you can hear something. Again, I think this starkly shows what we lost there. The first two taken literally from each side of the platform, from the current vantage point today. If people don't know there was a station there, there's no, literally besides the crane, there's no evidence of it there. The one on the right hand side there is taken, the first top one's in 1966, second one in 1973, third one in 1977, and the fourth one as it is today. On the other side of the bridge was Ladies Walk New Zealand sidings, which I will talk about on the other talk when I'm discussing the smaller stations and railway networks on my next talk. But that was a very vast area of marshalling yards. Then we have Greyhound Bridge. Again, the construction shot there, and as is today. I didn't take the overhead photograph of that. I did actually find one which matched it perfectly, but I'll do so much for my my passion, but not actually go up in a hot air balloon or a microlight. But again, shows the layout of the bridge there in conjunction where Sainsbury's is now and where the goods yards were. And again, we mentioned trains trundling across Greyhound Bridge. There is actually a photograph of a train trundling across Greyhound Bridge. The evidence of the track, funnily enough, was still there until the latest redevelopment of Greyhound Bridge of the Works in 2019. It's been completely removed now, but you could actually see in the tarmac where the tracks had actually gone across. There's two of the remnants of Greaves Junction. The top one is one of the Heritage Tour trains from the 1960s. Bottom one is now built there is a health centre, doctor's surgery. And again, the car park at the RLI was where the old goods yard was. And it's still quite, obviously, the space itself is quite recognisable. And like I mentioned earlier, if you walk a little bit further down the car park, you can actually see the remnants of the platform for the original station. The Green Ayre to Castle Station spur. Obviously now the cycle track. There's a couple of shots there. One near where it's crossing the bridge at the quay. The second one, which I mentioned earlier about having to build the ballast up, when they kept the line open for the fuel for the power station, you can just see how much ballast they had to put on under the track to raise it up, because now obviously that's dropped and that's now the cycle track as is. But yeah, the ballast was built up on both sides just to facilitate actually getting the trains across there. And again, shots from the quay. The second one there, the one on the right, is quite interesting. That's just before and just after the conversion of Greyhound Bridge. So the top one's after the railways have stopped working, but obviously the line at the bottom is still there. The bottom one was taken probably about 1973, and so the bridge is now constructed. And again, it does show how the ballast being built up to the to enable the trains to get over Greyhound Bridge while the line was still operating. This one, looking down onto Morecambe Road from Carlisle Bridge. You see the Morecambe Road in the background there. Again, this is where the cycle track is now. And again, obviously overgrown, but the cycle track, the same path as where the train was. And the top one there, you can just see the tracks literally just coming off Greyhound Bridge. Traffic does look much better than as now, to be honest. Castle Station, again, not a great deal of change. First image there taken in the 1950s. What is quite interesting is when it goes over under the bridge there, the canopy used to extend further down the track, which I only noticed when I actually took that comparison photograph. Again, that's the old line which used to go to Green Ayre, and it's this unit here, the now with no track, the disused part of the station is the part they're looking to convert to a pub restaurant-y type thing. And rather sadly, like I said, unless you search very hard, there's very little of the station visible or accessible, except for a few bricks, and you can actually tell if you rummage enough where the platform was. Again, that's a section of what was known as the Golden Mile, the test bed for the different cantinas carrying electric wires. So there's lots of different shapes. There was some that were more, as I mentioned, some that were more closer together to emulate a train going under a tunnel or a long bridge or something like that. And again, it's a much used but rather sad cycle track. Finally, I just want to show you a video. It's not the best of quality. It's from a cine film taken during the I think early 1960s, but it does give you a real feel of what we had and what we've lost. This is coming into Castle Station. And a good shot of the gasometer there. Here's an engine coming up from what would be the Glasson Dock line, which ran down alongside Longmarsh Lane, and the old signal box, which was there behind Williamson's. That's quite a good shot from Vicarage Fields, looking down over Vicarage Fields down onto Carlisle Bridge. Key meadow in the front there. There's a train coming from the Castle Station to Green Ayre Spur. Just to the right there, you could see Greyhound Bridge. Train coming off Greyhound Bridge itself. There's a train passing under Skerton Bridge, past Ladies Walk New Zealand sidings coming into Ayre Station itself. Also inside Ayre Station. And a good shot of tankers, probably from ICI, coming over Greyhound Bridge. Same again coming into the actual station itself. The Harbour Bridge, also from Ayre Station. One of the electric trains leaving, heading off to Morecambe. Greyhound Bridge again. Passed under Skerton Bridge onto the station. And Skerton Bridge in the background there. So that side platform was virtually on the river bank itself. Again, coming under Skerton Bridge into Ayre. Greyhound Bridge. So not the greatest of quality, but it does give you a real feel of how busy the area was. That's a shot from New Zealand and Ladies Walk sidings. So that's the other side of Skerton Bridge. The buildings there are still used as I think it used to be Hartley Hire, and there's a bike shop there now. All that area is taken over by the enterprise estate, if you will. It's got quite a few businesses there. So a lot of the engines looking rather sad and tired, so it's obviously towards the end of steam. Like I say, it would be wonderful now to still have that line going through the Lune Valley, but thanks to Mr. Beeching, Dr. Beeching, we do not have it anymore. It's a train going down towards Skerton Station, Morecambe Road in the background. Skerton Station. And coming towards Skerton Station. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was our snapshot of the railways of Lancaster and Morecambe. Any questions?
Right. There was a question appeared on the chat from Roger. Why were the sidings called New Zealand?
I believe, I'll just unshare screen now. Oh, I might leave it up in case anybody wants to flick back to anything. It's believed the New Zealand part of it was to do with wearing and gillows. A lot of the timber used to come in for wearing and gillows and be unloaded there. So it's believed that the New Zealand Ladies Walk is obviously Ladies Walk used to run along that that part of the Lune side, but I'm pretty certain that the actual New Zealand side of it was to do with the timber that was a lot of the timber that was brought to Waine and Gillows via that line.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind unsharing, that way I can see everybody who's here, in case anybody has their hands up for a question.
Stop sharing. There we go.
There we are. Right. Paul has his hand up.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm sure those of us who've lived in the area all our lives will have our own memories of the railways and so on. I have one and a question based on it, really. As a boy, I remember in Morecambe Promenade Station, there used to be a glass cabinet containing a model of Stephenson's rocket. And if you put a penny in and turned the handle, it would operate the pistons and make the wheels go round.
I remember
that. Still there?
No, it's not, but I'm not sure if that model's there, but there also used to be a model of one of the ferries, a very big model of again in a glass case, and that that model of the ferry is definitely in York Railway Museum. Because I don't know if you've been to the Railway Museum at all, but they have like an area which is just jam-packed with all sorts of odds. They can't actually put out on display, but you can still walk through it. And the one of the boat is definitely there. I don't know if I didn't see it, but it might be worth asking the question if the Stephenson's rocket one made its way over there as well. I think with such artifacts like that, I should imagine that York Railway Museum would have jumped on something like that, especially with them having the model of the ferry there. So it might be worth contacting York Railway Museum and see if they do still have it. But yeah, I do remember that as well.
Okay. Anyone else? Untitled Chapter. Oh, Howard.
Howard.
You can you unmute yourself? Howard, we can't. That's it.
Yeah. No, still can't hear you, Howard.
No, you'll have to use sign language.
Is your microphone on, Howard? You've untapped yourself, but we can't hear you.
You're not muted, Howard, but your sound's not coming through.
No, sorry. No, can't hear a thing, Howard.
Good type of question.
Would you like to answer that one, Andy?
No.
No. All right then. Roger, you've been typing away an epistle as the talk was going.
I've just picked up Roger's here. Was Ayre Station the site of Brockbank's shipyard? Brockbank's was a little bit further round towards the literally, I'd say where Sainsbury's is now. There's a couple of artist drawings of it which actually show it more on that corner. So I think it was literally on the back of Cable Street, because there was another shipyard a little bit further down in Skerton as well. But yeah, I think Brockbank's was literally, I would say, where Sainsbury's, the area of where Sainsbury's is now. There is a great painting of like horse-drawn trucks going down Cable Street, and you can see Brockbank's literally over the side of it. So I would pretty much say that Brockbank's would have been on the side where Sainsbury's is now.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Certainly.
Several years ago, the old first Lancaster Station was opened on Heritage Day.
yeah.
And we, a number of civic society people involved with stewarding that, which is all very interesting. We were told that the very long car park, a very long platform in the car park, but for the infirmary, was specially constructed or enlarged during the First World War.
To receive soldiers.
And troops were brought non-stop from Dover or one of the Channel ports to Lancaster, where they were unloaded for treatment at the infirmary or triaged or something. Are you aware of this, or?
Heard, but during both wars, they did make, especially with the one at Greaves not being used for passengers, but still being a long length of track and a sort of kind of marshalling yard, because obviously there was quite a few lines going into that. I do believe that both in the First World War and also in the Second World War, a lot of stuff was stored, troops in transit or tanks or ammunitions and stuff like that. They did utilise that stretch of line because it was long and it was empty. So I hadn't heard the First World War one, but I've definitely heard stories about the Second World War, it being quite extensively used. But I will look into that because it's quite interesting.
Right. Right. Yeah, we're next time Andy comes and talks, we'll set you and Roger up as a double act. Right, so there's no answer to that one, Roger, but yes, it's fascinating. Are there any other questions?
Did they send horses through Heysham, or is it my imagination of seeing a picture of a horse suspended by its belly from a crane?
I think all sorts of livestock were moved in the early days from Heysham. Like I said, there was actually pens at Heysham Harbour for livestock. So I should imagine all sorts of stuff. Obviously, long before the days of road haulage and stuff like that. That was primarily the main way they would move it. And obviously there was the link to Belfast then. So it stands to reason that a lot of livestock would have gone through there. So
particularly in World War One for slaughter on the Somme.
Yeah, I could imagine. Definitely imagine so, because they won't be short of horses in Ireland, would they? So I should imagine that we both Heysham and Liverpool would have been utilised for that. So yeah, I should imagine definitely a lot of livestock will have come through there.
Thanks, Andy. Gordon.
Just to add to that point, outside wartime, the major livestock from Ireland to Heysham was beef cattle. And there was an extensive layerage at that port, as in all other ports, for the import of cattle.
Right.
But that's one advantage of having a room full of historians. We've between us, we'll get there.
Oh yeah.
One more question, and then I'll be ready for my bed. Anybody? Was that you scratching your head or sticking your hand up, David?
Scratching my head.
All right. I thought I got some.
Just to see if I could catch you out.
I can share another anecdote about Bear Lane Station signal box. Because as a child, I used to live off Low Lane, and it's a shame it hasn't been made. They managed to save it. I remember the signalman used to have an enormous wheel that he used to turn to operate the gates, rather than it was all it wasn't electronic. He had to do it manually.
Wow. Bet it was fit.
Right. Well, Andrew, I think that's kept them all occupied for that. It's you live in an area for lengths of time, and you forget little bits that go on. I mean, I only came here in '86, but used to come regularly to Morecambe. We used to get one of these railway runabout tickets, and I could have sworn that rail line through to Morecambe was third rail, but you just proved tonight that I'm totally wrong. So that shut me up on that subject. Well, briefly. Thank you very much. We really do appreciate your regular contributions to our speaker meetings, and as you've already advertised, you're aiming on coming back with another one. So
yeah, well, like I said, the initial when I started putting this together, I've made notes on all the logs like Halton, Weddington, Arcombe and stuff like that, and I thought, oh, I'll put it all together, and I got up to like 90 slides on this one. I thought maybe it's worth another talk. Yeah. Obviously got Glas and Dock and all the stories there, so yeah, I'm currently working on the part 2 at the moment, but it's early days.
Right. Well, keep in touch with David. He's always looking for a speaker.
Yeah.
So I think if you would all unmute yourself and show your appreciation for Andrew's talk tonight in the normal manner.
Yes, well done, Andrew. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you, Andrew.
First class.
Thanks, Andy. Our next speaker in November is Sean Corkery. He lives in Galgate and has done a considerable amount of research into the war dead of the Eval district, and so he was giving us a talk in November, Remembrance Month, of a country parish at war. So I hope you will join us. I've got a hand up from Heather, which I hope isn't a question for Andrew. She's muted and no picture.
No, it's not.
You were just pushing buttons, were you?
I was just clapping.
I was playing with the clapping.
Right. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you all for coming tonight, and look forward to seeing you at the talk in November, if not before.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night all.
Thank you.